Welcome back to MVM. I'm Kira and I'm here today with a review of a new Tiny Epic game from Gamelyn Games and Scott Alms, and that is Tiny Epic Galaxies Blast Off. Yes, a new Tiny Epic Galaxies. What's up with that? Well, that's what we're here today to discuss, but first I want to say a couple of things. One, this is 100% my thoughts. Yes, Gamelyn sent me the game so that I could talk about what I like about this versus maybe the old Galaxies. So I'm going to talk about all of that today, but I should also say that part of the reason that I'm talking about this is because I'm a huge Tiny Epic fan, so please take my thoughts with a grain of salt as somebody who already really loves the series and already really loves Tiny Epic Galaxies. What is it about space games that really gets me excited? I don't know. I love space exploration. I'm a big fan of the game Firefly. I love Terraforming Mars, Pulsar, great games out there. But one of my very first space games I ever got to put my hands on when I entered the hobby was Tiny Epic Galaxies. I won't go into a whole lot of detail about Tiny Epic Galaxies, the original, right now. I will talk about some of the comparisons as we go through this review today. But what I do want to say is the reason why Tiny Epic Galaxies is so attractive to me is that it is easy to teach to those new to the hobby. So why a new version of Galaxies coming out now? What is Blast Off all about? Let's find out. One of the core principles of any Tiny Epic game is that it is easy to set up and learn to play, and this game is no different. When you open the box, you have very few components inside for what ends up being a lot of gameplay. So let's set up the game and you'll see how it all works out. First, you'll take the deck of cards and set out as many planets as there are players, plus 2. In this example, I'm setting up for a 2-player game, so I'm setting out 4 planets. Next, you're going to pull out the activation bay, make it accessible for all players, and then we're going to put out the play mats for each player. Each player is then going to get a number of components to put on their playmat. Let's take a closer look. First, you're going to take your Galaxy slider and put it on the bottom space on the right side of the board where you can see these numbers showing. Next, you're going to put a ship on each of the spaces on the ship track on the right side that show a ship. Then you're going to take the remaining 2 ships and you're going to put them in your Galaxy. Then you're going to take the culture token and place it right here where it shows a culture, helping you remember that to start the game you get 1 culture and 2 energy. All right, the last thing you'll do is you'll take the top of the box and flip it over and it becomes a dice tray. If you want, of course you can always roll on the table, but it's a nice to have. And then of course the dice to roll. There are 6 total dice, but everyone's going to just start with 4 until you unlock more on your Galaxy slider. And that's it. You're all set up and ready to play Tiny Epic Galaxies. Now let's learn about how it plays. If you're familiar with Tiny Epic Galaxies, one of the first things you'll notice that's different here in this version is that everything is icon-based. There's a handy-dandy guide on the back of the rulebook to help you when you're playing the game. Starting with your player board, there's a number of icons. Number 1, we have your track here. You'll see there's an energy symbol here and here. The culture icon is here. You're going to see both of these icons on the different planets that you are visiting. This icon here means that you can reroll for 1 energy. This icon here means that you can follow another player's action by paying 1 culture. We'll talk more about how following works when we get into gameplay. Down here, you'll see your Galaxy icon. When you see this icon, you're going to be able to utilize planet abilities of the planets that you've colonized or move your Galaxy slider up the track in order to unlock more dice, more ships, and more victory points. So the first thing the players will do on their turn is roll 4 dice. At the beginning of the game, everyone starts with 4. As I just showed, you can move up the Galaxy slider in order to gain more dice throughout the game, up to 6. So first, we roll the dice. Now, based on the different icons that showed up, you're going to be able to do a number of different actions, and those are all shown on your activation bay. Let's first talk about the different actions that you can take with the dice. It's important to know what those do, right? As you can see, there are different icons listed here, and those will match the different die that you'll be rolling. The first action you can take is to move a ship. To move a ship, you'll place your rocket die in the activation bay. Then you'll take one of the ships from your galaxy mat or another planet if you've already started colonizing or visiting other planets, and you'll move it to your desired planet. Now there are two places that you can land. If you land on the planet's surface, you're going to be able to take the action below immediately. If you land on the left side, where you see these numbers and these icons, you're going to be trying to colonize the planet, bringing that planet into your galaxy and making those actions only available to you. The next action you can take is to advance your tech. As you see on this planet, there's a gear icon at the top. That means tech. When you have this die and you place it into your activation bay, you can move your ship up one space on the track on the left side. The same goes for advanced life. That's the plant icon on your die. Now you'll notice on the planets in the upper right, there's another icon. These icons are energy and culture. Yep, you saw those on your track on your player board. When you choose to activate a die with either the energy symbol or the culture symbol on it, for every ship in your galaxy, you're going to gain 1 energy when you play the energy die. If your ship happens to be on a planet with an energy, that also counts. The same goes for culture. Now note, culture only shows up on planets and nowhere else. So you'll want to be very strategic about culture, because culture allows you to follow, which I mentioned before and we'll talk about in more detail now. There are 3 spots on the activation bay that have yellow instead of blue. Now you'll notice the same thing over here on converter. We'll talk more about converter here in just a moment, but let's just talk about why these are a different color. For those of you who know the original Galaxies, this is one of the main changes that show up in this version versus the original. When you play a die, other players can follow you by paying 1 culture. They can only follow if they have the culture to spend. These 3 yellow spots mean that you can only follow actions in those spots. Once you get to spot 4, 5, or 6 with your dice, no more follows can happen. The converter also has the yellow outline around it. Take one of your inactive die, you pay either an energy or a culture, and then you can flip that die to whatever face you need. Other players can follow with 1 culture. The last action that I'll talk about today is utilizing a galaxy. If you roll the galaxy die, you'll be able to place it in the activation bay and do one of 2 things. You're either going to pay the amount of resources shown on the left side of your galaxy slider, where the little arrow is pointing up. You'll have to pay this all of the same type, either all energy or all culture, in order to move the slider up. You're trying to gain the different planets by colonizing them. If you choose to colonize a planet, you're going to be moving up the track on the left by playing those dice we mentioned earlier, either the tech or the life die. Once you get to the top of the track, you're going to take that planet and you're going to place it underneath your galaxy map. You'll see that there's a point icon on the bottom of all of the different planets, and those are points you're working towards for end game. Points are accumulated between the planets and how far you've moved up with your galaxy slider. The game ends when one of the players hits 21 points. You'll finish an equal number of rounds and you'll see who wins. So in addition to points from planets, you also get the added benefit of that ability on the bottom of the card now being part of your tableau and yours only. All right, so that's Blast Off in a nutshell, space shell, some sort of analogy there. As you can see, this game is super easy to set up, super easy to teach, and well, a lot of fun to play. That is one of the main reasons I really love this game. It is easy for me to bring my friends into the hobby, but what do I think about Blast Off versus the original? Well, I have to say, this nip-tucked version really improved the game. There were 2 really minor changes that had a lot of impact on what you just saw in the gameplays that I've had between the 2. So in this one, as I mentioned while I was talking about how you play the game, there's the activation bay. It has 2 things that changed. One is you cannot follow every single die that comes out. That was super powerful in the original, making it everybody feel really good, but at the same time could really allow people to take advantage of other people's turns, hindering the active player because they don't want to do certain things that might help other players. And there was some strategy to looking at how much culture everybody had and adjusting your plans on which ones you put out first based on what you think they might do. But what this new activation bay with only the 3 follow spots, well, technically 4 because of the converter, but with those limited follow spots, it allows you as the active player to have a little bit more strategy in how you play your dice. Now, the converter space is the other change. Now, this is a little bit more major to me because it was super punishing before in the original. You had to have 2 inactive die that you wanted to put into the converter to pop out the 3rd inactive die as whatever you wanted. So it took 3 dice in order to get 1 icon in the original, whereas in this new version of Galaxies, you are able to simply change 1 die with either an energy or a culture. Major change, super improvement to the game. I just recently did a top 10 of all the Tiny Epics and how I rank them. I haven't actually thought about scoring them before, so this is a little bit interesting to me because I love all the games so much, but Galaxies has always been really high on my list. What did I rank the original Galaxies? What am I gonna rank Blastoff? Well, I have to say, it's one of my most favorite games because of what it does, right? It comes to the table very often. I'm able to teach my friends. I was able to play with the same friend group, this new version, and they all just fell in love with it. It definitely takes a step above the original for me, which was probably at a solid 8 to begin with. Now, that means Blastoff, it's probably right on the 9 mark for me because I know this game is going to get played a lot. It's going to hit the table a lot. I'm going to bring a lot of new players into the game. It's one of those games that everybody I've ever taught it to likes, and it's super, super easy to learn. I've gone this entire time without talking at all about the incredible art in this game because I just love the game so much. Now, I will say my one criticism is that I really liked the original graphic design in Galaxies. This new version has a little bit more of a kid vibe, if you will, with the white outline borders, but I love the illustrations. They have so much more personality than the original planets. I really liked the original player boards. They were fun and whimsical, but I totally understand the functionality change in the player boards for new players. It makes it a little bit less fiddly to move things around. It makes it very simple to see where you're at. On the original, you had to kind of, because they're curved, you kind of had to look at it and say, oh yeah, that's where I'm at. And you know, I played a bazillion times, so it didn't really bother me that much, but when I really look at it and try to understand why they made that change, that's what comes to mind. It's a functionality change for new players to make the game less fiddly. And while I like the original graphic design, I totally understand the new graphic design, both of the cards and the player boards. And overall, like, the look of this game is very, very pretty. These illustrations, you're really gonna enjoy getting this game out on the table, and it's gonna be a lot of fun to play. I hope that this review helped you get an idea of what Blastoff does for you if you're a new player, and what Blastoff has that's different than the original Galaxies. Are you a fan? Are you excited about this new version? Please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to talk more about it. As you know, I love Tiny Epic. So that's it for now, and we'll see you next time.
Congratulations, you got to the end of one of our videos. Now, if you want more practice, just click on the video over here. It's another video. You might not have seen it yet, so click on it. If you don't want to do that, at least click on the subscription button below. That always helps us. And if you want notifications, please ring that bell.